My mother was secretly plotting to take my grandfather's inheritance, when her lawyers tried to corner me. I brought someone who changed everything. When my grandfather died, it barely made a ripple in our family group chat. A few obligatory messages. Sad to hear. May he rest. He's with grandma now. The kind of empty grief you send to keep up appearances. But no one really mourned, especially not my mom. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was a ghost in family conversations. Mom hated him. She said he was cold, prideful, and stingy. She said he never helped out when we needed it. She once told me he skipped my 3rd birthday on purpose, just to make a point. I never even knew what the point was. Growing up, I saw him maybe once a year. He'd show up with a check for $50 and a quiet nod. No hugs, no warm stories, but he looked at me like he saw something, like I wasn't just another face at the kids' table. He never said much, but he always asked what I was building or reading. No one else did. Then he was gone. He passed away at 87 in his sleep. No drama, just a voicemail from my uncle and a 2-sentence obituary. And then 2 weeks later, everything exploded. I was sitting in my apartment half listening to a podcast and folding laundry when I got a certified letter. Real paper, real signature, law firm envelope. I thought maybe it was a tax screw-up. Nope. It was a notification that I was named sole beneficiary of my grandfather's estate. Not a part, not a share, everything. I stared at the letter like it was written in another language. It listed out assets like a grocery list, a paid-off house, a retirement account, investment dividends, even a safe deposit box I didn't know existed. It totaled just over $840,000. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed and read it again. It wasn't a mistake. My name was all over it. My grandfather, the man no one ever talked about, had left everything to me. And within 24 hours, my phone exploded. My mom called first. Her voice was sugar sweet, like she was calling to ask if I had eaten. "Sweetheart," she said. "Did you hear about the will? Isn't that odd?" "Odd?" I asked how she even knew. "Well, Uncle Brian mentioned it. We were all just confused, honestly. Why would he leave it to you of all people?" I stayed silent. "Anyway," she said, her tone slipping into something thinner, tighter. "We all agree that this should be shared. That money belongs to the family. The family, of course. Not me. Not the person he chose." Mom went on. "I mean, we could really use it right now. You know, your sister's tuition, the house repairs. This could really help everyone." I asked her point blank. "Did Grandpa ever help you when you asked?" She scoffed. "No, he never lifted a finger. That's why this is so ridiculous." "Maybe," I said. He finally decided to lift one. That's when the sugar in her voice disappeared. The next few days were a parade of guilt-wrapped manipulation. Texts from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Calls from my uncle suggesting we could all sit down and talk things out. Even my brother chimed in with, "You don't actually think Grandpa meant to give it all to you, right?" But I wasn't budging. I didn't ask for this inheritance. I didn't expect it. But if the man who everyone ignored saw something in me, I wasn't going to throw that away just because my family suddenly remembered my name. Then Mom called again. This time she didn't ask. She told. "There's going to be a meeting at the house next Sunday," she said. "Everyone will be there. We're going to talk about how to handle this maturely, like adults." She didn't say it, but I heard it in her tone. "Bring the checkbook." I almost said no. But something in me burned too hot to ignore. If they wanted a meeting, fine. I'd show up, but I wouldn't come alone. I pulled up to my parents' house with my stomach coiled like a fist. The driveway was already full. My uncle's Tahoe, my sister's beat-up Corolla, even my cousin Dave's lifted truck that screamed compensating. You would think someone had died again. I parked on the street. Before I got out, I glanced at the passenger seat. My lawyer, Maria, was scrolling through the last page of the letter we prepped. "You ready for this circus?" she asked, not looking up. "Ready as I'll ever be." She smirked and flipped the folder shut. "Just remember, don't sign anything. Don't engage emotionally and let me talk first. Even if they cry, especially if they cry." We stepped up to the front door, and I didn't even get to knock before it swung open. My mom stood there, face set in what she probably thought was a warm smile. Her eyes flicked past me to Maria. "Oh, you brought someone." I smiled. "Funny. So did you." Inside, it felt like an intervention. Living room chairs had been dragged into a tight circle. Everyone was there, my mom, Dad, Uncle Brian, my sister in the corner pretending to be on her phone. Even some guy who looked vaguely familiar was sitting awkwardly by the fireplace. And then there were the suits. 2 men in stiff ties, briefcases open. A thick stack of papers lay on the coffee table like it was about to be notarized into family history. "Please sit," Mom said, gesturing to a chair directly across from the lawyers. I sat. Maria remained standing, arms crossed. "We wanted to talk reasonably," Mom began. "No pressure, just clarity." One of the suits introduced himself as Mitch, the family's consulting attorney. "We're here to present a document that would allow the inheritance to be transferred into a family-managed account," he explained smoothly. "Nothing coercive, of course. Entirely voluntary," my mom chimed in. "It's just about fairness, about keeping things together. Grandpa wouldn't have wanted the money to create division." My jaw clenched, but I stayed silent. Mitch continued, sliding the stack toward me. "Just a few signatures and everything stays in the family's control. You'll still have access to a portion, of course, but your mother and uncle will be the financial custodians." "And stop," Maria said, stepping forward. The room froze. She picked up the document, flipped to page 2, then 4, then the last. "Did you draft this yourself?" Mitch looked flustered. "Well, our firm worked with," Maria cut him off. "This is a coercive agreement with language that implies the signer is mentally unfit to manage assets without oversight, which for the record is grounds for legal retaliation." My mother's face drained. "It's just precautionary." "We weren't trying to what?" I finally said. My voice was quiet, but the room heard it like thunder. "To take what someone gave me because it didn't go to you?" Everyone stared at me like I was ruining Christmas, like I was the villain in a movie where I had somehow stolen the plot twist. I stood up slowly, still holding the unsigned contract. Then I placed it back on the table and said what I'd been waiting all week to say. "Funny thing, you thought I'd come here alone." Maria smiled cool and sharp. "We're filing a cease and desist. If there's another attempt to manipulate or defame my client regarding this inheritance, we'll pursue legal damages." The lawyers looked like they wanted to sink into the floor. My uncle muttered something about miscommunication. My mom opened her mouth, but no words came out, and I just walked to the door. "I didn't ask for the money," I said without turning around. "But it's mine now and I'm done being cornered for what someone else thought I deserved." Then I walked out, but it wasn't over yet. After that circus of a family meeting, things went eerily quiet. No texts from my mom, no passive-aggressive emails from Uncle Brian, not even a sarcastic meme from my sister. And that was her favorite language. For 3 days, it felt like I'd stepped into a different timeline. One where my family didn't exist. It should have felt peaceful. But it didn't, because when my family went quiet, it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Maria told me to expect it. "People like this don't give up," she warned. "They regroup. They reframe the story so they're the victims." And sure enough, on the 4th day, the narrative campaign began. It started with a Facebook post. My cousin Jessica uploaded a black and white picture of my grandfather, the same man she used to call a grumpy old bat behind his back, with a caption so loaded it could have passed for a Hallmark war declaration. "He always said family comes first." I just wish everyone remembered that. Subtle, sharp, designed to cut. Within hours there were comments. "So sad what money does to people. Some folks only show up when there's a check involved. Your mom deserves better." None of them tagged me. But I wasn't stupid. The next day, it escalated. My aunt posted something about the tragedy of watching loved ones get poisoned by greed. While my sister quietly removed me from our shared Netflix account, not blocked, just removed. A petty little digital exile. Then came the group text. "Mom, 9:42 a.m. Just want to remind everyone that this isn't about greed. It's about unity. No one's trying to take anything. We're just hurting and confused. I hope certain people remember who raised them." Certain people. Yeah. Okay. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew what they really wanted. A reaction. Anything to shift the blame. Anything to make me seem unstable or selfish. I refused to play that game. Instead, I documented everything. Screenshots, messages. I even made a digital folder titled Inheri Drama because, hey, if I was going to deal with a family meltdown, I might as well organize it. Maria helped me flag every piece of written pressure patterns, she called it. These people don't know how to draw boundaries. They only know how to apply pressure until someone breaks. They were used to me being the one who broke first. Not anymore. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done since the funeral. I visited my grandfather's grave. I didn't tell anyone. Just drove up there alone with a box of black coffee, some silence, and an old wooden box I had built back in high school shop class. It was one of the few times Grandpa had ever looked at me with something that almost felt like pride. He'd run his hand along the edge and said, "Good hands. You build things that last." I remember those words more than anything else he ever gave me. I left the box at the base of the headstone, not as a gift, but as a message. I'm still building, I told him. And this time, I'm building a life that doesn't fall apart just because people get loud. There was no wind, no birds, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything from you, unlike my family. On the drive back, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a voicemail came through. It was my uncle. Look, we can't keep doing this. Your mother's a wreck. Maybe you don't care, but the rest of us are trying to move forward. Be reasonable. Come back to the table before this gets ugly. Before this gets ugly. That part echoed. It was a threat disguised as a plea, and I knew it meant only one thing. They weren't finished. By Monday, the mask was off. Gone were the passive-aggressive texts and Facebook shade. Now it was just aggression, direct and clumsy. I got an email from a firm I didn't recognize. Legal letterhead. Attached was a formal notice requesting a review of the inheritance distribution, citing potential undue influence and mental decline on behalf of the deceased. In short, they were trying to challenge the will. They wanted to claim that I'd manipulated my grandfather, that he wasn't of sound mind when he wrote me into his estate, that I had somehow stolen the inheritance from the rightful heirs, the same people who didn't even show up for his last birthday. I forwarded the letter to Maria. She called me 5 minutes later. They're testing you, she said. It's a bluff. No court's going to believe a single beneficiary manipulated an 87-year-old war veteran into cutting out his entire family unless they have proof. And they don't. Still, she recommended we respond just to send a message. So, we did. The reply was polite but firm. We included the notarized will, the video footage of Grandpa signing it in his lawyer's office, and a short statement. Any further attempts to dispute this inheritance without legal basis will result in a countersuit for harassment and defamation. That should have been the end, but it wasn't. 3 days later, I got a call from my dad. He rarely called, and when he did, it was either to fix his Wi-Fi or guilt trip me about forgetting someone's birthday. But this time, his voice was eerily calm. Your mother wants to try again. A real conversation. Just us. No lawyers. Sunday. Same place, same place. The last time I walked into that house, they tried to corner me with documents and bad faith smiles. Now they wanted a redo. I almost said no. Almost ignored it, but then I remembered what Maria had told me the day after the ambush. If they try anything again, let them. Just make sure we're ready. So, I accepted the invitation and I told her to be ready. Sunday came fast. This time, I didn't wear anything formal. Just jeans, a gray hoodie, and boots. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, the person they underestimated. Again, Maria and I parked 2 blocks away and walked up quietly. She had a tablet tucked under her arm. I had a folder with every printout from the last few weeks. This time I was ready for anything. The front door opened before I knocked again. My mom standing there with a slightly too bright smile. Glad you came. I nodded. She led us into the dining room, not the living room this time. I noticed the chairs were arranged again. Not quite a circle, more like a press conference. At the head of the table were 2 new men in suits. Lawyers again, and beside them, sitting quietly with her hands folded, my sister. I glanced at her. She looked uncomfortable. Guilty maybe, but she didn't say a word. Please, one of the lawyers said, gesturing to the seat opposite them. We just want to present a possible compromise. I didn't sit. Maria stepped forward. Let's see it, she said calmly. They handed her a folder. It was a rewritten agreement, slightly different, more legalese, but the same core message. Transfer the inheritance into a family-managed trust with the money distributed equitably under supervision. I looked around the room. Everyone was silent like they were waiting for a weak spot to appear on my face. Then I smiled. Funny, I said. I brought someone, too. Maria pulled out her tablet, opened the camera app, and hit record. She turned to the lawyers. Just so we're clear, you're offering my client a legal document that pressures him to surrender his inheritance under emotional duress while surrounded by his immediate family. The room shifted. My mom stood. You don't need to record this. Maria didn't even blink. Please confirm on camera that this is a voluntary discussion and that there is no coercion present. The suits fidgeted. One of them started to speak, then stopped. I let the silence settle. Then I walked to the table, picked up the contract, and slowly tore it in half. You don't get to keep trying until you wear me down, I said. I turned to my mom. This is the last meeting, and I mean it. After the second ambush, the silence wasn't strategic anymore. It was just pathetic. No calls, no emails, no cryptic Facebook shade, just a vacuum, like they'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Or maybe they were regrouping for some other scheme. Either way, I didn't care because for the first time in my life, I felt like I was steering the damn car. Maria filed a formal letter of intent that same week. If they contacted me again regarding the inheritance, we'd file for harassment and seek punitive damages. She even cease and desist the firm that sent the trust agreement just so there'd be no confusion. Her final sentence was short and surgical. My client has no interest in family negotiations. This matter is closed. And it was. I didn't even realize how much tension I'd been carrying in my chest until I stopped checking my phone 10 times a day, until I started sleeping without mentally rehearsing how to defend myself. It was over, except, of course, nothing with my family ever really ends. It just changes costumes. 2 weeks later, my sister called me. I let it ring the first time. The second time, I answered. She sounded like she'd been crying. I didn't know they were doing that, she said quietly. They told me it was just going to be a discussion. You didn't say anything, I replied. I froze. We sat in silence for a while. Then she said, you know, they told me Grandpa never really liked you. That he only left you the inheritance because he didn't trust them. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I'd already guessed it. He didn't like me, I said. But I think he respected me. There's a difference, she sighed. They're saying you turned your back on the family, that you let some lawyer twist everything. I didn't respond at first. Then I said, no. What I did was refuse to let the same people who ignored me for years decide what I was worth. Grandpa made that choice. I just enforced it. She was quiet again. I'm not calling to fight, she said. I just wanted you to know I get it now. And I'm sorry. It wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing either. That night, I opened the folder Grandpa's lawyer had given me after the will was read. I hadn't looked through it much, too caught up in damage control. Inside were 3 letters. One to me, one to Maria, and one to himself. An old man's summary of his life. I opened mine. It was handwritten, sloppy, but deliberate. You were the only one who never asked me for anything. That's why I gave you everything. People will come for it. Let them. But don't give them your peace. That's worth more than the money. I read it twice. Then a third time. He knew all of it. I'd spent years thinking he barely noticed me. But maybe all along he saw me clearer than anyone else did. Not as the black sheep, but as the one strong enough to stand alone when it mattered. I called Maria the next morning and told her I wanted to set something up. Not a lawsuit, not revenge, a trust, a fund in Grandpa's name, something quiet. Maybe to support kids who aged out of foster care. Kids like my friend Nolan, who got kicked into the world at 18 with a garbage bag of clothes and a list of people who never showed up for him. Maria said she'd help make it happen. That day, I realized something. I didn't win because I got the money. I won because I didn't let them take who I was in the process. By the following month, the story my family told about me had mutated into something almost unrecognizable. Apparently, I had weaponized a dead man's will, brought in corporate sharks, and refused to share a cent with the people who raised me. They made me sound like a Marvel villain in a hoodie. The story changed depending on who was telling it. To Uncle Brian, I was the greedy one. To my cousins, the ungrateful brat. To my mom's church group, I was the lost soul twisted by money. They could call me whatever they wanted. I had receipts and peace. But still, reputation is a funny thing. Once people start whispering, even those who never met you begin to look at you sideways. So, I stopped trying to correct the narrative. Instead, I wrote my own. Maria helped me set up the fund in Grandpa's name, the WR Foundation. It started small. A yearly grant for trade school tuition, awarded to someone who didn't follow the traditional path, but worked like hell anyway. I even wrote the selection essay myself. This award goes to someone overlooked, underestimated, or counted out. The kind of person who isn't the loudest in the room, just the one still standing when the noise dies down. The applications started coming in fast. One of them was from a 19-year-old kid named Jordan who had been sleeping in his car while finishing his electrical certification. He didn't have family, no handouts, just grit and duct tape. Sounded familiar. I called him personally. I've read your file, I told him. You're getting it. No strings. There was silence on the line, then a shaky breath. No one's ever just given me anything. Well, I said, I'm not just anyone, and neither was he. A week later, my sister showed up unannounced at my door. I opened it with hesitation. She looked worn down, less like someone who had picked a side, more like someone who realized the whole game was rigged. I didn't know what they were doing at first, she said. And then I did. And I didn't stop it. I said nothing. She continued. Mom still thinks she was right. She tells everyone you'll come to your senses when the money dries up. It won't, I said flatly. I know, she replied. I came to say I was wrong and I'm sorry. I watched her for a second. I could see it. The cracks, the guilt, the small buried part of her that didn't want to be like them. "Come in," I said. "But this doesn't mean I forget." "Fair." We sat in silence for most of the visit. Sometimes words aren't the bridge. They're just the truce. When she left, she hugged me, the real kind, not the holiday version. I didn't hug back right away, but eventually I did. I wasn't looking for reconciliation, but I wasn't looking to carry every grudge for the rest of my life either. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. She hadn't spoken to me since the last family meeting. Her message was tight, measured. "I heard about the scholarship. I hope it helps someone, but don't think it erases how you treated us. You've hurt this family more than you know." I deleted it without saving. Some people confuse boundaries with betrayal. But I wasn't betraying my family. I was just no longer playing their game. The funny thing about family money is that when you have none, you're expected to be grateful for scraps. And when you have it, suddenly everyone acts like it was always meant to be shared with them. That reality hit again one rainy Thursday morning when I got a message from my cousin Derek. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Not since he called me the luckiest leech alive in a group chat he forgot I was still in. The message read, "Hey man, no hard feelings about before. Just wondering if the foundation does emergency support, too. My truck's engine blew and I need to keep working. Would mean a lot. No apology, no reflection, just need dressed up as reconnection." I didn't respond. He followed up a few hours later with, "I get it. You're the big man now. Just don't forget where you came from." That part made me laugh out loud. Where I came from. I remembered exactly where I came from. I came from birthday cards without signatures. From hand-me-downs passed off as generosity, from years of being told, "When you're older, you'll understand." I was older now, and I understood perfectly. That same week, Maria forwarded me a copy of a will dispute filed in another state, different family, similar playbook. Annis inherited everything, and within weeks, her family dragged her to court. She won. The court's closing line stuck with me. Inheritance is not a democratic process. Amen. I was grateful that Maria had helped me shut it all down early. Without her, I would have been crushed under the guilt traps and emotional landmines. But more than that, I was proud of myself for showing up, for saying no, for not signing anything just to keep the peace. Because peace built on fear isn't peace. It's just quiet resentment. 2 months after I launched the scholarship, I was invited to speak at a small local event, something about trades, growth, and second chances. I almost said no, but I went. The room was small. Maybe 40 people, mostly teens, single parents, and veterans retraining for new careers. No judgment, just people trying to rebuild. I told them the truth. I told them that being underestimated wasn't the worst thing. That sometimes the people who doubt you are actually doing you a favor. They teach you how to rise with no one to lean on. Afterward, a man my age, rough hands, nervous energy, approached me. "My brother took everything when our parents died," he said. Said I wasn't smart enough to manage it. "I've been working my way up ever since. What would you do?" I looked at him, saw the anger barely held together with duct tape. "I'd let them lose sleep," I said. "And I'd build a life so solid they can't buy their way back into it." He didn't say anything, just nodded once, sharp and heavy, like it landed deep. When I got home that night, I sat on my porch, the one I paid for with my own damn hands, and thought about how many versions of me would have cracked under the pressure. Younger me would have given in after the first guilt trip. Would have signed the money away just to hear "I'm proud of you" from people who'd never say it. Now I was proud of myself and I had nothing to prove to anyone else. The story didn't end the day I tore up that contract in front of my family. It didn't end when I walked out of the house or when Maria filed the cease and desist letters or even when I deposited the last check from Grandpa's estate into a foundation that would never bear my mother's name. It ended on a random afternoon 6 months later in a grocery store parking lot. I was walking back to my car when I heard my name. "Alex." I turned. It was my mom. She looked different. Not older, just smaller, like the weight she used to carry in volume and control had been slowly bleeding out of her. She was holding a bag of apples and standing awkwardly like she didn't expect me to stop. I waited. "I heard about the scholarship," she said, her voice trying to sound neutral. "I'm not here to talk about the foundation," I replied. "Or the inheritance," she nodded. I figured. There was a long pause. Then finally, "I never hated you. You know." That sentence could have meant a dozen things and none of them changed anything. I nodded once, got in my car, and drove away. She didn't stop me. She didn't chase. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I realized something. She had nothing left to hold over me. No power, no leverage, no story in which she was the victim, and I was the selfish one who needed fixing. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I was the architect of my own peace. That night, I sat down and opened the last of Grandpa's letters, the one he wrote to himself. Notes, mostly ramblings, bits of thoughts scribbled in the margins of a legal pad. But one line stood out. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what they can't take from you. I closed the notebook and smiled. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about control. About deciding that I would no longer be the one who bends first, apologizes first, or breaks just to keep others comfortable. The inheritance didn't change me. It revealed me. And when they tried to take it, tried to corner me with lawyers and guilt and polished lies, I didn't fold. I brought someone. Someone prepared. Someone smart. Someone who could speak the language they used to silence people like me. Maria. Yes. But also me. The version of me that stood up and said no more. The version that remembered every quiet slight. Every dismissive smirk. Every family gathering where I was asked to clean but never thanked. The version of me my grandfather saw, even if he never said it out loud. So when they handed me that paper and expected me to roll over, I smiled because I knew they were bluffing and I had already called it. Funny, I said, holding the paper lightly between my fingers. I brought someone, too, and that was the moment they knew. I wasn't the one getting played. I was the one holding the rules.